Thank you everyone for joining. This is our second roundtable talk around women in tech, International Women's Month. The last time we had this talk was on the actual International Women's Day. So we'll kind of keep the same format for this one. We'll talk about some of the same topics about women in tech, but a few different questions to kind of probe those discussions and conversations. So again, if you all have any questions throughout this, please put them in the chat. I'll monitor the chat and ask them as they come up. Anyone is free to talk in this discussion, but we definitely want to give all of the women here a chance to answer the questions first. Again, no pressure to those who don't want to talk, but we would love to hear from everyone. So we're going to go ahead and get started. So I want to give a recap of what we talked about last time for those that weren't able to join. So we did talk about what made a lot of the women here join tech. We found out that we all are from very different backgrounds. Some of us wanted to immediately jump into tech, some of us not so much. Some of us just found our way here, but nonetheless, we are here and we are all kind of enjoying our paths that got us here. We also talked about roadblocks or problems that we all encountered on our career paths, whether it was just something with the work or the code or learning and figuring out that maybe coding is not for us, or if it was just in general, things that happened in the environments that we were in, things that are kind of out of our control, stereotypes that happen with women in tech, things like that. And then also the last thing that we touched on was where do we see ourselves in tech in the next 5 to 10 years? Some of us see ourselves still staying in tech, some of us maybe retired but using tech in a different avenue. So to kind of go off of that same discussion that we had, the first question that I do want to ask, because with the last discussion we talked about families and things like that. So first question is, did everyone's family support their career choice of being in tech, and or did they see you doing something else?
I'll start. That's an interesting one. So everyone knows Sue and I are sisters, so she knows the story. So I think it's not that my family was unsupportive; they just didn't really know what I was doing, if that makes sense. Like I remember coming home and sharing, news about this and this and that, and it was just so outside of the world of like what my family does and talks about and Sue had shared earlier that she's a composer and that's what she loves. I'm from a family of artists, so dancers and singers and composers and painters and, my dad was a ship captain. Nobody is a technologist. So I, would come home and I'd start sharing about things, honestly, even to this day. And I think they want to be supportive because they're just good people, but they have no idea what I'm talking about, basically. So I think there's a bit of that. So in terms of having in my own life anyway, it was really challenging because you just want to come home to your family table and just be like, hey, this is what I'm doing. This is what's successful and all of that. And it just didn't register at all. So that's been my experience.
I would say my experience is kind of similar to yours. My mom's really supportive, but she has no idea what's going on. She's just always like, that sounds good. Can you please get me a t-shirt? Like she really rips the company hard, but she has no idea about she could barely use an iPhone. My brother, I wasn't here last week to share this, but I actually got into tech because my brother suggested it. He was like, hey, if you want to do HR, you could do it in tech and it's better money. So I was like, okay, cool, let's do it. So I get to talk to him a lot about it. And honestly, it made us even closer because we have something in common now. So now I can ask him questions like when I'm hiring or like how to find different people for the roles. Like he gives really great advice. So he's super supportive as well. And, my parents love it. They just don't know what I'm talking about.
Definitely following the trend of parents not knowing what we work in or kind of how to communicate with that. I think I'd also add that when I started going to school for it and then eventually branched into the job field, my parents were really worried because my mom especially was like, this is still a super heavily male dominated field. I think it's a fun thing to think about, like around International Women's Day, and like kind of how far like we've seen the tech industry come like during our careers, but also how far we still have to go. And I know I had a lot of conversations with her, and like continue to have conversations about like how hard it can be like sometimes, because I know we're all not strangers to being like one of like the few, if not the only women in the room, and like how to show up in that area and like be confident in that space.
I'll kind of go after that. So mine is a little different. So my mom originally wanted me to go into nursing because she originally was a nurse. My sister is a EMS technician, and so everybody originally was like, okay, go into nursing, it's, it's good money and this, and I'm just like, okay. And I kind of told this story last time, but I originally was a clinical laboratory science major, and then I realized that I was horrible at biology. I failed biology the first time I tried to take it. And I realized, being a clinical lab major, that I had to take anatomy and physiology 1 and 2 and all these other science classes that had to do with the body. And I couldn't even get through biology. So I was like, you know what? I don't think this is the path for me. So now everyone is definitely supportive of what I do, but like everyone else, I'm following the trend. They have absolutely no idea what I actually do. I don't know if you've ever seen that meme of, it's like what my mom thinks I do at work, what my friends or family thinks I do at work, what I actually do at work. That's literally my family. So yeah, they're supportive of it, but my mom definitely was a little heartbroken when I told her that I was changing my major from clinical lab, because she was like, I wanted you to go into nursing and all of that. But the good thing about it, and the good thing about me going into tech, is my niece, I made her want to go into tech. And so now she's a junior at UNC Chapel Hill in computer science. So she always calls me. She's like, hey, can you help me with my homework? So right now I'm currently helping her with a Java assignment, because that's what aunts are for.
That's awesome. I'll share. I'm just curious to hear, because I think for me, a lot of what my parents know about the tech world has come from either investing in the stock market and being like, yeah, Facebook and Amazon are awesome. And so they're just excited about tech, or like watching TV shows like Silicon Valley and just thinking that's exactly what it is for everyone. So I think my family's excited that I'm in tech just because they have exposure in that sense, but absolutely agree that like the actual day-to-day, they have no clue. And my father will try to give me advice, and it always just ends up being like investing advice. And I'm like, this is not the same, but thank you so much, Dad.
My story is kind of similar to Dion. My mother wanted me to become a chartered accountant because my father was a CA. But in India, we say during my 11th grade, I had to choose my group. That is either A, B, C. A for biology, B for computer science, and C for commerce. She wanted me to take the commerce group, but then I didn't want to go for commerce because during that time my cousin was in US doing IT job, so I wanted to follow his path. So I just took computer science. She was sad at first, but then my family supported me, and then I did my undergrad in IT, and after that I did my master's, and here I am. Yeah.
Oh, that's good. I think for the most part, it's no one's unsupportive. It's just, what the heck do you do? And it's always really hard to try and explain that, because I feel like, especially as women in tech, and even in the roles that a lot of us are in, we do a lot of different things and we wear a lot of different hats. So it's already hard to explain what we do in tech, because there's so many different things that we do. So I definitely understand that. So kind of piggyback off of that, what is one thing, or it could be more than one thing, would you say to other women, whether they're in college or high school, or even women now that are in a different career path, what would you say to them who are considering entering tech or wanting to get into tech?
I'll go first. I would say do it. I think if you're at all interested in it, and you have the mind for it, and by that I mean the mindset for it, tech is not being smart or being the smartest person in the room. It's being a solution finder and finding us in having a toolkit that allows you to deliver that solution, however, in whatever tech stack you're working in and whatever, which is why I think once you learn one programming language, you just start picking up others, because they really are fundamentally all the same once you understand what you're doing. And you become a solution provider. And then what I would strongly encourage people to do is, especially if they're newer, is start looking at Web3 and blockchain technologies, because that is, in 10 years, we will not be having the kind of conversations about tech that we're having now. We'll be having them based around blockchain technology, you owning your own presence out on the internet, and what that means for buying real estate, for buying clothes, for the metaverse, all those things. The trend is the wave of that is building. It's here, it's not going away. And it's something that as technical people, we need to understand what that is, because we'll be, some of all y'all, will be building that for the next 20 years of your career in some form or another. I really feel like we're at the beginning of back in the day when people were like, there's this internet, like, what's the @ symbol mean? What does that do? And now it's like, they were picturing the internet as one thing, and now it's, it is the amazing thing it is. I think that's where we are with Web3 and blockchain type technologies, not only for the web, but blockchain technologies in general. Think about that for medical. Like, imagine your medical records on the blockchain and you owning, anyway, I don't want to get on the soapbox, but that I would say definitely learn your chops and all that stuff, but be sure that you understand what's coming with Web3, because you're going to be shaping that. So, but yeah, I 100% encouraged to do it.
I think, sorry, we all kind of went off mute at the same time. Mine is really quick. I think for me, I think the biggest piece of advice, or one thing I would tell women, especially getting into tech, or even anyone, especially getting into tech, something that my mentor told me is to be a lifelong learner. Because especially with tech, it's always changing. Something's always coming up. Something new is always evolving. And if you don't evolve with it, you're kind of just going to get left behind, because tech is not waiting for anybody. So I think it would just be comfortable being a lifelong learner, and be comfortable going out and learning those things on your own, because it's not always going to be handed to you.
That's really good, Dion. I would say to answer your question, a couple things. Firstly, come join us at Mindera. We have hundreds of jobs. So that's a selfless or selfish, I guess, pitch. But the other thing is, and those who have been around for a while know that this is kind of one of my passions, is tech is a great place for people who are switching careers. It's a great place to come into in mid-career. It's from another career. Maybe you finished a career, maybe for women specifically, maybe you were raising children, and now, you're somewhere in your 40s and you're deciding, hey, I want to get back into the job world. And there's a couple of different reasons for that. Number one is it might be one of the only industries, especially that pays what it does, because it does pay a good wage, where you don't really need to have licenses, you don't need to have certifications, you don't need to have formal education, you don't need any of that. In fact, when we interview, it's when we look at resumes at Mindera anyway, we look at education, but it's not a prerequisite ever for the roles that we hire. So that's one really good thing. As Susan said, you just need to have an aptitude for it. But the second part of that too is that tech doesn't just mean you sit at a computer and code. There's so many roles in technology, including many of the people on this call. We're not coders. We are all the people that surround the coding world. And then the third thing I would say is that I can't think of another industry where the potential to be flexible in terms of hours is like it is in tech. So you really could come into a company and negotiate, and it's probably something you would have to negotiate as part of your employment, but negotiate weird hours, negotiate starting at 6 a.m. or at 3 p.m. Because at the end of the day, we do continuous development, we do continuous integration. It's always moving. And so there's probably space for someone who can't perhaps adhere to a traditional, say, 9 to 5. That just doesn't exist in tech, really. So that's what I would say.
Any other interjections there?
I mean, I would say for anybody wanting to get into tech is that it's a lot less scary than it looks. It definitely looks really scary when you think about all the different technology, which route to go in. But I would say, I promise, like, it's really not that bad. And that's coming from someone that didn't know like what Java was from the beginning. It's something that you always learn from. So as long as you keep that mentality of ready to learn and go and change with the system, like, just go for it. Take that leap of faith.
I would echo that, Ebony, and I think along with what you said, Mary, I would definitely encourage people and women in particular to get into tech, even if, like you said, you don't want to maybe pursue the technical avenue of being a coder or a developer. There's so much opportunity within the space. And I think increasingly tech is moving in a direction where there's a lot of need and requirement for kind of soft skills that women from maybe other industries might have. You know, last week we were talking about being a teacher or being in education. I think increasingly those other skills are really needed in tech. So it's a great direction and something to pursue, even if you maybe don't want to be a coder particularly.
That's a fantastic point. And in the aggregate, all those are fantastic points because, and I know every developer on the call, especially people with more experience, will back me up on this. We're coding less and less. There are fewer things that there are more frameworks, there are more out of box things. There are people on the call I know who had to stand up a LAMP stack from a bare server in their past, where now you click a button and AWS will do that for you, or you know, some other like cloud platform will do that for you with the click of a button. There's more and more click of a button taking care of, in fact, even creating buttons, click of a button, taking care of the actual tech and the nitty gritty that we used to have to code. What that doesn't replace though is what Haley is saying here, is that, I mean, I think you're saying, Haley, is that the soft skills side of that becomes very, very important, because if all you're doing is assembling technologies and having the smarts to be able to know what technologies to assemble, for sure. But the other part of that equation is, how do you treat people? How do you treat your client? The proper care and feeding of clients and that kind of thing. And then just what Dion said about having that, you know, like the kind of growth mindset is what I would call it. You know, have a growth mindset, like be prepared to grow and learn, and then don't be afraid of it. And also, this is hard to hear, but don't be afraid to say that you don't know something. I find some of the most powerful interactions I have with people is if I honestly raise my hand and say, I don't know about that technology. Tell me about that. I've not run across that. It's so vast. How can you know everything, right? But hey, tell me about that, or educate me a little bit about that. The reason I can do that is because I'm very confident about what I do know. And I'm okay saying, gosh, you know, I haven't really done that much with Amazon Light Sail. Tell me about why I would use Amazon Light Sail, for example. So don't be afraid to ask questions. Come prepared, but don't be afraid to raise your hand and say, tell me more about that. I don't know that technology very well. That will serve you in any walk of life, but certainly in tech, because tech is always changing, always, always, always.
No, I definitely agree there. So I kind of want to shift just a little bit, still going to be on the same path of what we're talking about now, but in the last discussion, we talked about some of the roadblocks and some of the challenges of being women in tech. So I kind of want to bring that to a positive. So what do you think is, or what has been in your experience, the best part about being a woman in the tech industry?
I would say that it's the other women I have met. Tech really attracts the smartest and most interesting, dynamic people that are so in charge of like their lives and like what they prioritize and what they want to do. And I have made like some of the best friendships of my life, like through meeting people in tech. And there's just really a kinship, and you could be corny, I suppose, and say sisterhood, like how we work together and how like we like know where each other are and getting to know each other. And I love that. And I absolutely love too, like that I get to keep meeting new people and working together.
I have kind of a fun story. I love that, Gracie Lou. I have a fun story. So this is the best part in kind of a evil / awesome way. basically. So a couple of years, just before the pandemic, I was in London and I was meeting with a Mindera client who was recommended by a client of ours called MindTech. I took the meeting with like some salesperson, but then the chief operating officer of that company. And when I sat down, I could tell that, he thought I was whatever. And the salesperson who had known me introduced me as, the managing director in the US. And I could see the surprise on the COO's face, because as it turns out, Mindera is a much bigger company than that company was. It was, our revenues are better, like the whole thing, we're just a stronger company. And there is a delight. It hasn't happened obviously since the pandemic, but I love being underestimated. I really do. I see it as kind of a superpower, like being able to go into a meeting when the other person doesn't really know what to expect, and just being able to be like, no, like I'm here and I know what I'm talking about, and I'm still going to be like who I am. I'm just Mary, I'm not like anything, whatever. But that being underestimated and then watching the shock, especially on that person's face when it was, I will never forget that. It probably a pinnacle in my career, if I'm honest.
I would say to also piggyback off of that, just being able to say like, I can do it. Like, I love when people ask, what do I do? I'd be like, oh, I do people operations for a software engineering company. Like, I'm always like, oh no, we have NDAs. I can't tell you who our clients are. And it's just this really like uplifting feeling when I could say like, yeah, I know software, I know technology, like I can do this. And just like, kind of like what Mary was saying, just being able to sit at the table and speak the same terms and the same lingo, like it's like a little confidence booster. Like it feels good to be able to say and do.
Yep. I think it's actually like both of your stories, because I love that too, because a lot of people, one, because I'm still so young, and then I already look younger than what I actually am. So people are like mini story. I did a screening yesterday and the guy was like, how old are you? And I'm just like, 28. And I didn't even, he was just like, you're so young. How do you even know? I was just like, well, I've been in tech since school. So, so I love that. But it's also that whenever you're walking into a room and there's another woman at the table. So I think I love not only being underestimated, but I love the positivity that it brings to other women. Because for me, when I first got recruited for my internship, there was a woman that recruited me. And if it was another man, I was just like, okay. But it felt good that it was another woman, and it was a woman in a leadership position and not just another, and okay, I don't want this to sound bad, but not like somebody's secretary, like not that a secretary is a bad job. So hopefully that doesn't come out disrespectful, but it was just a woman in power, a woman in leadership. And that's already very rare. And it's definitely becoming more common, which I love. So I definitely think it's the positive impact. And then also still kind of being underestimated of like, not only am I young, but I'm also far along in my career in tech.
Yeah, I can say that the thing that makes me most happy is that I'm contributing to building that next generation of people who, when you sit down at a table, it is a diverse table. There's diversity, which is one of the reasons I love Mindera so much, is we are just beautifully diverse and strong because of it. And I just love being part of building that. I'm sort of a long horizon person, given enough time, we will get there, but you have to do your part of that every day. And it's all a little drop in the bucket. And I just love being a part of that. The generations to come will not be having these kinds of specific discussions, I hope, anymore. In a sense, it's just people, we're people. We have strengths and weaknesses. We're different and we're strong in different ways and all that stuff. And we all belong at the table. And I love being a part of that. So I will say that I realized, Dion, what you said reminded me, I realized when I was still in college, I had an internship with a tech company, which was my first exposure to a tech company. And I realized that I had a different kind of job when we were all going into the meeting and someone asked me if they could bring me coffee for the meeting. nothing like that had ever happened. I had always had the job where I brought the coffee, which I was happy and proud to do. I don't see any, there's equal value in that too, but that literally, in that, I'll never forget the moment. I was like, oh, this is different. Something has shifted here, so I just, really interesting moment that, yeah, Dion, you just helped me remember. And then also, this is maybe a little sexist, but not on my part, but I also I have my pilot's license. And when I was learning, I was flying around Florida because I was in college at Florida. And the first time you make radio contact, at least this was back then, to hear women pilots on the radio was uncommon. And it's probably proportionally less, not as uncommon, but still it's probably the ratio, I think, is maybe 30-70 or whatever. But every once in a while you would land in a difficult crosswind or something like that at some little airport, and the controller would come on and be like, well, that was a fine landing, little lady, or something like that, and you're like, okay, I mean, I'll take it, I guess, in the spirit given, or I'll take it in the best spirit. But someday that wouldn't even occur, and probably not, maybe now is that time. It won't occur to anyone to say that, unless he's saying it to everyone who's doing the landing. Well, son, that was a fine landing, or well, that was a fine landing. But anyway, so just proud to be a part of it.
I'll share a little bit. First off, Susan, okay, casually dropping that you have a pilot's license.
I haven't flown in a while, full disclosure, but I could still do it.
That's epic. I'll say it was definitely a draw for me to come to Mindera. So this is kind of just a pro of why I love being a woman at Mindera, possibly. I shared this with Mary when I came on, but when I was searching for a job, it was one of my top criteria that I wanted to have a female team, or ideally like a female boss. We don't maybe have bosses here, but because I'd worked directly under male CEOs for years, and I really was craving a change to maybe get to work directly with more women. And so that's been such a welcome change coming here. And I think I want more companies to know that hiring women attracts more strong women, because just as Gracie Lou was saying, it's definitely a draw and a pro when you're considering a company. Like, it's a benefit, because we've definitely interviewed candidates here who get immediately so excited when they see that our recruiting team is female, and when they know that we have other female POs or other female devs. And of course, something we still want to do more of, because we still have a majority male team, but it says a lot that even having a certain percentage of females on your team is just such a huge benefit in a lot of eyes of other women. So I think it's awesome that we can draw in more people by having great women on our team.
I've always loved how our entire team was all female. I'm just saying, they're all women. So really small flex there, but I'll keep going. So I know that a lot of us aren't like coding. I'll give Susan and like my three and a couple people that we'll let you keep that. But I am curious to know, what are some things that you all are excited about as far as the future of tech? So it can just be something, it could even be whether it's new technologies that are coming out, or whether it's something with your career path, but just something that you're excited about that's coming up, or that you think is going to be happening or evolving in tech.
Blockchain.
Yeah, I was just going to echo what Sue said. Blockchain is going to change literally everything, basically. Mindera will not look like it does today in 5 years because of blockchain. We get a lot of requests, for instance, for AWS integration engineers, that type of thing. Blockchain is going to remove that as a requirement, because it's just going to be done completely differently. So it's interesting. It's also, I got to say, because I'm somewhat toward the end of my career, I'm a little bit like, all right, well, let me finish before that gets in, because that is going to require, who was it that was saying always be learning, Dion? Yes, definitely do that. And also, I hope I don't have to learn that. Like, I hope that I'm sailing off into the sunset by the time that blockchain actually becomes like a real thing. And that, maybe some of the younger women on this call, it will be your standard to take forward, and say, this is who we are. But that is 100% going to change the landscape of what Mindera does, but then also what technology does more in general.
So I am excited for blockchain, but one thing that I've always been really interested in is AI. And so I'm really excited to still see where that goes in the future, because I feel like there's so many different things happening between, if you're going into like robotics and how they're trying to use like the little, I don't know what her name is. She creeps me out, but I don't know what her name is. That does that has like seeing if they have like emotions and all and the facial expressions and things like that. That part, all I think about is iRobot. However, I am still really excited for seeing where AI goes, because I feel like the possibilities for that are completely endless. I won't say completely, but there's so many different, she agrees with me. But I think there's just so many different avenues and ways that they can use it, especially now with like the metaverse and how they're doing that with VR. And so I think that's like the biggest thing that I'm excited for, and to see what happens with that.
I want to add one more thing, because I was recently in a place where I heard the VP of Facebook, he came to speak to a group I was with, and he's the person that Facebook brought in after that whole Russian ad fiasco thing that happened a few years ago around the elections. And there's something that is going to be happening right now with because of the cookie settings and the, was it GRDP, you know, how we can set cookies and manage information for individuals. It's going to completely change that landscape. And I don't know if this is a good thing or a bad thing, but it's going to change how businesses can interact and work on the web. And so I'm actually super interested to see how that's going to go. It might be that smaller businesses, for ones that rely, say, on Facebook advertising, that kind of thing, for their livelihood, that they're not going to be able to compete anymore. But out of that will come a whole new something that maybe we don't even know what it is. So that to me is super interesting, just to see how permissions and managing your own personal information, which is partly what the blockchain thing is that Sue was talking about, but how that evolves into what businesses look like moving forward, you know.
Kind of in a different direction. I'm really excited to see how tech continues to embrace and empower the human side of people. Tech has kind of always been at the forefront of adopting, yes, you can work from home and I'm not going to ask you to prove why, or I trust you to get your job done. And like seeing us expand into, I don't care where you're living, or you can work these different hours, or maybe like I'm hoping within my lifetime to see like 4-day work days, and watching tech like continuing to lead how we care and treat and empower other people. That's something that I don't see across a lot of other engineering or other industries. And I love too that Mindera keeps that so close to their heart in how we support each other and take care of our employees.
I think that's one of the biggest things, or one of the biggest reasons why I know people kind of grow and evolve and kind of move on from companies, but I think that's the human side of Mindera is one of the main reasons why I don't think I could ever leave, because I don't see another company doing this. Like I've lived in 3 different states since I've been with Mindera, and I've been with Mindera for a little over, or just about a year and a half. And it's been super easy. There hasn't been like any issues. It's always been encouraged to, you know, and so I think that with other tech companies, hopefully they start adopting and really pay attention to the actual people that are doing their work, because I think one thing that they can take from Mindera is that Mindera, like without our minders, where is Mindera? And I think that's what other companies haven't realized yet, is because they think everyone is, and I won't speak for them, but it looks like to the outside world that people are kind of disposable for them. So they can just always find new talent. And that is true. There's a ton of talent out here, but the people that we hire, they're here obviously for a reason, and we treat them like they're people, like they're human, and we like with working hours and things like that. So that is one thing that I absolutely do love about the company. So I do agree with you. I hope that is something that companies do start doing in the future. And it for me. Anybody else, I'll let anybody else interject if they have anything before we kind of start wrapping up with the last question.
Well, that topic is pretty close to my heart. So I just want to say one small thing, which is I'm really happy to hear you say that, Tian, because it was on purpose. Mindera was built the way it was built because we all came from places where people were trying to control us and trying to control, you must sit in your, I literally had someone say, you must sit in your chair and code. And I quit that day. I'm like, no, like who are you? You know, like that was really, really tough to hear. So I think what Mindera is proving, and we sometimes talk about it internally anyway, as an experiment, and that kind of bugs me a little bit because it's much more thoughtful than, maybe it's a scientific experiment. Maybe that's what they meant, because it's very thoughtfully done. But we're proving that you truly can trust people. If you put your trust in people and if you show them that, hey, here are the people who you need to trust. And it's not Mary so much, it's not Susan so much, it's not Dion so much, but it's your team. Like you've got a team of 5 or so people and they are relying on you. People will step up. So I love to hear that feedback. And I agree, I would love for other technology companies, other companies and just in general, to replace control with trust in all the best ways and see, you know, what can happen from that.
Do we have any other interjections before we move on to the last question? Okay, so we have talked about a very wide variety of tech and us all being in tech. So my last question, and then the last, depending on how long this takes, the last like 10 minutes can be based on if anybody has questions for any of the women in the discussion. But my last question is, as far as where tech has been and where it is now from the time that you've kind of been in tech, what has been the most important, whether it was development or whether it was just something in your personal life, what has been the most important factor that has driven your tech career?
Oh, I can start this one off. That has driven my tech career. Okay, we all know I'm still new, but I would say my team, like my team being so supportive, knowing that coming in, I didn't know a lot of tech terms. I didn't know a lot about it in general, but just the support that I received, the help that I received, like I've grown so much in a few months, just being surrounded by my team and like constantly being able to ask questions without feeling uncomfortable or like feeling like, oh, maybe I should already know this. I would just say like the support overall has really like, it's getting me to a place where I'm like, I'm not used to going to work and being happy or like being on vacation. Like, I can't wait to log in on Monday. Like you just never get that feeling, but my team's so great. We get to have fun and we laugh a lot. So I love it.
Okay, I'll go next. So mine has definitely been not only like the team that I work with now, but just in general, people that I've encountered. So especially with me being in school, we won't get into my sob story of how school went for me, but my mentor unfortunately has passed away, but my mentor at the time kept me in tech. There was a point where I dropped out of school for a year. And when I came back, I was like, I'm not doing tech. I don't care. I don't want to, I just wanted the easiest route to graduate. And then he kept me in tech. He did everything that he could to keep me motivated, which motivation doesn't come easy. You're always not motivated, but he definitely kept me in tech and got me my internship, got me my job at Nationwide. So I think definitely the people, and then especially coming here with Tara, who's no longer with the company, and Kath, and especially Susan and Mary definitely helped me out when I first got here a lot, because there were some struggles. So I think just having people be patient with you, like Ebony mentioned, and just having the support. So I've had the support from college until now, and I feel like I always have that support. And I'm definitely a big question person, so I definitely understand of having to ask those questions and wanting to, and not feeling like, oh, I'm bothering someone, or am I asking too many questions, or do you think I should already know that? So I think just definitely in general, just having the support and having the people has definitely been like the biggest contributing factor to my tech career.
Oh man, I almost completely forgot the whole reason why I even was able to jump in this deck, because of Dion. Literally, like I went from like on the phone with her every day crying about my current workplace. Then I was like, I really want to go into a tech company. It just seems like so nice. And she was like, okay, I'll let you know when we're hiring. So honestly, yeah, that's a huge contribution, because I wouldn't even be in it right now if it wasn't for you. So shout out to you.
Well, that's true, but to be fair, we didn't know that you two knew each other until we had made the decision to hire you, Ebony. So you got in, maybe Dion opened the door, but you had to walk through it, you know, and there were several candidates. So I think you should feel very proud of the fact that, you know, you were, you know, chosen basically. And then she told us, and I was like, oh, well, that's even better. Like, let's all have our best friends come work with us. Like, why not? I've got mine, you know, like everybody bring a best friend to work. Like, let's have that kind of company.
I know. I literally was just like, I have a referral, and I didn't say anything else.
Yeah.
It was hilarious. I got the job, and I was like, yeah, that's
So
what
Dion, I was like, listen, if I can get one interview, I'm gonna get it. So just one interview and I'm in there. Just refer me and I'm there.
And you've every day been proving it too. So that's just, you have to earn it every day. I think for me, as everyone's sharing their stories, I think for me, the common thread is being around people who make you better. And in any walk of life, but specifically in tech, aside from the fact that it pays well, you know, and generally pays, you know, it's a good salary, so it can support you. But it also gives you probably more important that to be around people who make you better every day in some way or another. I'm always, I hope anyway, like I said, I'm a growth mindset person, so I hope I learn something new every day, and certainly on my team I do, and certainly you know, here at Mindera I do, and I'm also it's also the kind of career where you can also give too. You can give what you know. You can help someone understand how a key pair works, you know, or whatever it is, you know, and you can each one teach one, so you can pass it along. And I think that's a really important thing, to be able to pass on what you've learned. But just the people on this call, I mean, everyone on this call, all the teams here at Mindera and in the US, I'm constantly learning from people who know. And I also get the opportunity to teach and give what I've learned, a little bit of what I've learned too. And gosh, in any career, you really can't really ask for more than that. That's like, to me, you know, that's fantastic. I would hate to be like you know, the CEO of a massive organization where I thought I was the smartest person and no one could talk to me, and what my life would be. I wouldn't like that at all. So definitely for me, that is the main thing, is the ability to be around people who make you better.
I can go to, in addition to like all of like the great people, I think, so for those of you that aren't as familiar, like with me and my background, so I'm a product owner here with Mindera, but I didn't start that way. I went to school for software engineering actually, and it actually, I think, took getting fired as a software engineer for asking too many questions why, and being too loud about caring about our end users, and being told to just keep my head down and to code the story and follow the spec, and really taking that moment and realizing like, this isn't a bad thing, this is a good thing, and being able to take that to drive like what we do and how we care about like both our software engineers and all of our end users in the things that we build on a day-to-day basis. Like, that was such a hard moment, but also a mind-opening moment to realize that like, it's not a one-size-fits-all solution, and there's ways that we can use like our individual strengths to really build like what we can do and be in tech.
Does anyone else want to share? We have about 11 minutes left. Okay. Well, if not, I don't have any additional questions. So if anyone just has questions for the team or the masses or any of the women on the call, feel free to go ahead and ask. At this point, you don't have to put them in the Zoom chat. You can just go ahead and ask any questions that you have. If not, then we can go ahead and wrap up. And thanks everyone for joining. Really
Wait,
appreciate it. Oh, go ahead. Yeah.
It's one, and it's killing me because I don't know if I missed it last week, but who was in tech first, Mary or Sue?
I'm pretty sure I was.
Don't
I
know.
think- Although I'm younger, I graduated college first, and I went and started badly building websites in the late 90s while Sue was learning how to be a software engineer.
Oh, yeah, I remember that. Yeah. Yeah, Mary got there first.
Okay, that question was burning my soul.
And then we didn't work together at all until like,
Until
probably
failed
maybe.
business number 2.
Yeah, and I was, and I had, that was sort of my first introduction to super client facing work. Because before I had always been in these massive tech companies, that did long, $5 billion projects and all that stuff where I never saw the customer, whatever. But then when I started working with Mary, wow, it got really, and I learned a lot on the fly. Yeah, so gosh, that's right. Yeah.
Sue and I would essentially do pair programming because I was a bad coder before. Like I just was bad at it, but I was doing it as a front-end developer. We do pair programming like up to midnight nights, like just trying to get things across.
And
It was like
that one
the
time,
worst. Yeah.
one time we had a client who's like, you're 2 pixels off from the comp, and we had hired out the development work, and we stayed up 24 hours redoing the entire project
Mhm.
because they were going on air with the Academy Awards the next day. And
Yeah, because our developer, that was back when, I don't know if they still use it, do you use grids still, like developing on a grid? Well, it was
Yeah,
brand new back then. So the guy had said, I have this fancy new thing, but it means that things are pixels off, which was a big no-no back then. I don't know, things have changed so much, but yeah, we've definitely been in the trenches.
it was 24 hours of, yeah.
This is also completely unrelated, but Mary, I always thought you were older. I don't know why, but I always thought you were older.
She's far more responsible, less frivolous.
No, I'm like a lot younger.
It's that she runs the company. That's why. That's
Probably why.
That's what it is. Yeah.
That's all good.
Yeah.
It's because Sue is beautiful and never looks her age.
No, you could honestly, side by
Oh.
side, when you all are together, y'all can go for twins, same age and everything. So it's okay. It's not, it has
And
nothing-
we could probably pass for each other on the phone too. We definitely could voice-wise pass for each other on the phone. Anyway.
Definitely. All right. Does anyone else have any questions? Doesn't have to be like anything really deep down in women in tech, but does anyone else have any questions or final thoughts that they would like to share?
I have a final thought, which is thank you. Somebody said it, was it Ebony? Someone said it earlier on the call that it's Mindera, building Mindera essentially, and just to be on this journey with you all, with everyone on the call, and everyone at the US company and our counterparts overseas and all that stuff. It's really, it's such a thrill, and it's every day a challenge, and I don't dread Mondays or anything like that, well, I mean, sometimes if it's been a long weekend, but the people here are just fantastic, and it's the people that really make the company. And I always say we are building Mindera together. It's our idea, and that's a really powerful thing to be able to do. So thank you all. I'm just so grateful to be working with all of you.
Completely agree there. Well, thanks for that. Oh, well, thanks everyone for joining. We only have 5 minutes left, but thank you everyone for joining. If no one else has any final thoughts, I'll be sending out the first roundtable discussion in the Slack channel. Right after this, I finally got the link to it. And then once I get the link back from this one, I will share this one so that everyone that wasn't able to join can go back and view it. And then I'll also put them on our meeting of the Minders Board, so that you can always go back and reference them. So thank you all again for joining, and hope you all have an amazing rest of your Tuesday.
Thank you, everyone. Bye-bye.
Thanks so much. Happy Tuesday.
Right.